Good morning, and thank you for joining us for the seventh and final episode in the series of webinars focusing on the Daughters of Penelope mandatory and voluntary projects. Today, our presentation is a special one about Meals on Wheels. Thanks to a generous donation to our charitable foundation to assist seniors, past Grand President Eva Jean Fomalond and her Grand Lodge chose Meals on Wheels to be the recipient of this donation over 5 years. I had the pleasure to be present in DC last February to meet with our guests today and to present the check for 2020. Without further ado, I invite Grand Secretary Georgette Boulageris to introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Grand President Celia. Welcome, everybody. Today, we have two special guests with us to present Meals on Wheels. I heard a little story a little while ago about Meals on Wheels that I thought I'd share with you. A cat and a mouse went up to heaven, passed away and went up to heaven. The mouse got through the pearly gates first and St. Peter asked the mouse, "What can we do to make your stay a little bit more comfortable?" The mouse looked around and said, "I'd like some roller skates so I can explore more quickly around heaven." And lo and behold, roller skates ended up on his feet and he took off. A little later on, the cat came up and came through the pearly gates, and St. Peter says, "Do you need anything?" And the cat said, "Well, wait, give me a few days and then I'll let you know." So a few days later, St. Peter asked the cat, "Do you need anything?" He goes, "No, I'm great. I've learned so much." He goes, "Well, what have you learned?" He goes, "I've discovered Meals on Wheels." With that, with that in mind, today we have the opportunity to discover and learn about Meals on Wheels too. And our two presenters are Ellie Hollander and Kristine Templin. Let me tell you a little bit about Ellie. Ellie was named President and Chief Executive Officer of Meals on Wheels in February of 2013. Under Ellie's leadership, the organization has undergone many significant transformational changes. This includes redefining the organization's vision and mission, initiating a full organizational rebrand, investing in infrastructure and systems, embarking on a multi-year ad council campaign, and pursuing groundbreaking research. These changes have all been designed for more comprehensively supporting a nationwide network of Meals on Wheels program committed to assuring the health, safety, and independence of American seniors. Ellie's move to Meals on Wheels was a result of decades of experience working for profit and nonprofit organizations. Through this experience, Ellie developed a strong knowledge and understanding of the challenges facing a growing aging population and gained extensive experience in building and leading membership organizations. While at Good 360, where she had been serving as Chief Strategy Officer and Executive Vice President of Business Development, Ellie led the organization to a more disciplined approach for setting strategy, determining performance and impact metrics, and developing plans for operationalize the strategy. She also oversaw the sourcing of millions of dollars of product donations from Fortune 500 companies that were then distributed to thousands of nonprofits serving millions of people in need. Prior to her tenure at Good 360, Ellie was an executive of AARP, serving twice as interim associate executive director for membership and for 8 years as executive vice president and chief people officer. Ellie's professional background also includes extensive experience in business and membership development, marketing, and communication. Ellie earned her BA with double majors in economics and French from Duke University and later graduated from the Duke Fuqua School of Business Advanced Management Program. Ellie has been honored by the Washington Business Journal as one of the Women Who Means Business in 2016 Silver Stevie Award, Female Executive of the Year winner of the Nonprofit Governments category, and was named a Results of America Moneyball for Government Nonprofit All-Star in 2017 for Meals on Wheels commitment to evidence-based work. Ellie is also a member of the International Women's Forum, the George Washington University School of Business Corporate Collaborative Council, and a former member of the board of directors of the International Association of Corporate and Professional Recruitment and Gifts in Kind International. Shoot, sorry. Kristine is the Chief Development Officer with Meals on Wheels America and oversees the national fundraising strategy for corporate partnerships, major donors, and special events while working collaboratively with the Meals on Wheels members program. With more than 20 years of cross-industry experience, Kristine has focused the last decade of her career on forging strategic partnerships and developing highly creative and visible consumer cause marketing campaigns. Drawing upon her keen business sense and passion for building scalable and sustainable cause programs, she has worked with leading national and global nonprofit brands, including the American Red Cross, St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, Special Olympics, and help Fortune 500 corporations tell their partnership stories in a way that authenticity connects with their stakeholders. Kristine most recently served as the Chief Development Officer of the Trust for the National Mall and an official nonprofit partner of the National Park Service, and led fundraising efforts to support the Trust's $350 million campaign goal. Truly two extraordinary women and role models. We've learned so much from them when we met them in person, and we continue to learn from them, and it is my pleasure to welcome them to the Daughters of Penelope webinar. Ellie, take it away.
Thank you so much, Georgette, for such a warm and lengthy introduction. I'm so embarrassed because I don't deserve having such kudos thrown my way, but Kristine definitely does. It's a pleasure to join you today. I've been looking forward to this very much, and hopefully this will be a fun presentation, an interactive one where you walk away learning some things that you didn't know before. I'm going to be leaning on Elena here to help with going to the next slide because she's going to be running the show for us. So Elena, next slide, please, if you don't mind. So before I get too far ahead of myself, I want to pause and also thank a few others who helped to make today possible. There are always a village of people that do that. And I'd like to call out Grand Governor Kathy Matrakis, Elena Saviolakis, Andrew Kappus, although he's listening in, he's not on the panel here today. He's the legislative consultant who first introduced me to the Daughters of Penelope. I also want to thank the current Grand President, Celia Kashmarsky, and past Grand Presidents Eva Jean Fomalon and Demi Thomas. I had the opportunity to meet all of you in Washington, D.C. over the years, and you are delightful. You've all been steadfast supporters of our work at Meals on Wheels, and we're incredibly grateful for your long-standing generosity and that of your respective Grand Lodges. And of course, I want to thank all of you who are watching this webinar today. The impact had by the Meals on Wheels network is all of ours to share. And we couldn't do what we do without the collective support from allies like you. So thank you all so very much. Next slide, please. In the next few minutes, I want to tell you a little bit about Meals on Wheels America, the seniors that our network serves, how we've been impacted by the pandemic, pivoted in response, and the challenges before us. But before I do, I'd like to share a video to set the stage for what Meals on Wheels, and in fact, all of us, have endured over the past year. Elena, please play the video.
While we remain inside, social distancing, isolating ourselves away from people, we are helping protect the ones we love, the ones who are most vulnerable. But not all of us can stay inside. Some have to be on the front lines, responding to older Americans who are most in need, delivering food and basic necessities, making sure the growing list of seniors who feel most alone right now hear a knock at the door and know that they are not. And though we may all feel vulnerable right now, There is so much strength to be found in this moment we're in. The outpouring of courage and support that is helping seniors and showing us all in these uncertain times that humanity is winning. Heroes across every community making a big difference right now. An army of Meals on Wheels volunteers and staff rising to the challenge in difficult times, the same way we've responded for decades in better times. Please remember the millions of homebound seniors who are depending on us. Donate now at mealsonwheelsamerica.org/COVID-19.
While Elena is going to get back to the PowerPoint and go to the next slide, I just want to say humanity is indeed winning. And that video is certainly a hard act to follow, but there are many more that I've embedded here throughout today's presentation that I think will rival that one. As you may know, Meals on Wheels America, or you may not, represents a network of thousands of senior nutrition programs of all shapes and sizes, serving urban, suburban, and rural communities nationwide. We envision an America in which all seniors live nourished lives with independence and dignity. And we advance that mission by providing research, advocacy, education and training, grants and funding directly to local Meals on Wheels programs, which in turn serve as a lifeline to our country's most vulnerable older adults. Next slide, please. Our cause has always been pressing, but it is particularly vital today. Our nation's senior population is growing like wildfire, outpacing available resources and leaving an increasing number of seniors facing hunger and isolation. Even before COVID-19 emerged as a worldwide threat, nearly 10 million seniors in America struggled with hunger, 8 million lived in isolation, and 7 million, actually more than 7 million, had income below the poverty line. Now, an even greater number of older adults are experiencing food insecurity and loneliness than ever before. In fact, this past summer, the number of meals provided to seniors in need were up 77%, and we were serving an additional 47% more seniors than before the pandemic hit. That's phenomenal. Today, that need remains high, with demand still up 39% from pre-COVID levels. Now I'm going to share a little bit more on COVID's impact on Meals on Wheels a little bit later in the slides. Next slide, please. We all recognize that senior hunger and isolation have a dramatic impact on an older adult's health and well-being, not to mention one's ability to live safely and healthy at home, where most of us want to be. Further, seniors struggling with hunger are much more likely to experience health outcomes that lead to hospitalization and premature placement in long-term care facilities like nursing homes. In fact, the costs associated with senior malnutrition alone exceed $50 billion annually. Meanwhile, seniors who are isolated, the primary group of seniors that Meals on Wheels serves, experience negative feelings that contribute to harmful health effects similar to those like smoking a half a pack of cigarettes a day. And believe it or not, the medical expenses associated with senior isolation exceeds $6.9 billion annually. So besides being a major social issue, it's a costly one as well. On top of all that, these issues are exacerbated by poverty, making it that much more difficult for seniors to access the resources that they need to live nourished lives. Next slide, please. So this is where we come in. For more than 40 years, local Meals on Wheels programs have been providing meals in homes and in group settings like senior centers, senior cafes, group dining sites to older adults across the country, those who are a little bit more mobile and able to get there. This local focus enables programs to plan for and respond to the unique needs of their specific communities, one of the most powerful attributes that our network has to offer. And because of this level of what I call distinctive customization or responsiveness, Meals on Wheels programs deliver much more than just a meal to their senior clients that go well beyond the nutrition. This includes companionship, safety and wellness checks, and connections to other community-based services that may be essential to keeping them healthy, safe, and independent in their own homes. We call this more than a meal. So don't be daunted by that model up there. That just shows basically the different areas where Meals on Wheels provides support to seniors in need. I always like to say that the meal is really the entree, as it is as much about all of the wraparound services that Meals on Wheels can provide. And sometimes that means ensuring that tripping hazards in the home are remediated. Sometimes it means that ensuring that loving pet companions get the nutrition that they need too, so that our senior clients aren't sharing their meals with their pets. And that is a true story. It happens. Next slide, please. So speaking of pets, I think this is a really good time to share a story about Winston and Patsy. So Elena, if you don't mind playing the video and then coming back to the slide, that would be great.
This is Winston, a cuddly, snuggly 14-year-old Schnauzer mix. And this is Patsy, Winston's 84-year-old owner. Look at him. Winston has amazing superpowers. Thanks to Winston's calming presence, Patsy is more likely to have lower cholesterol, a slower resting heart rate, and decreased risk of cardiovascular disease. And when he wants to go out, it keeps Patsy more physically active. Where she goes, he goes. And Patsy is more independent and happy because Winston is always by her side. Thousands of homebound seniors rely on their pets to live independently. That's why it's so important that Meals on Wheels helps to provide the food, supplies, and vet services that keep seniors and their pets healthy. Learn more at mealsonwheelsamerica.org/pets.
I just love that story. As an animal lover myself and someone who owns 3 dogs, all of whom have the upper paw, as one might say, I know how important it is to protect the relationship between seniors and their pets, particularly now amid the pandemic. That bond, as you heard from the video, makes a difference in people's health and well-being, physical and mental. And during the pandemic, we can all relate to what it feels like to live alone and to be isolated in our own communities, away from our friends and family and colleagues. And that's the life that Meals on Wheels seniors endured before the pandemic. And sadly, the life that way too many will continue to live long afterwards as well. Next slide, please. As you can see on this slide, Meals on Wheels serves some of the most vulnerable among us, the majority of whom live alone, struggle with multiple chronic conditions, and who take several medications daily. In fact, for many whom we visit, the Meals on Wheels volunteer or staff member is the only human contact that senior may receive in a given day or week. Next slide, please. Despite our name, Meals on Wheels is never just about a meal. Real human connections are what keep us whole. Let's take some inspiration from our friend Richard Gere and his father, Homer, who worked closely with Meals on Wheels for over 25 years. Please play the video.
COVID-19 has left many older Americans alone and needing our help. Meals on Wheels has always been there for them, making a difference. One of those who made a difference for over 25 years is my dad, Homer Gere. Dad, tell me when you first got an inkling about Meals on Wheels.
My neighbors and friends and so on realized there was a need for these meals programs for older people and so on, and we kind of got involved in it.
The food was kind of the obvious thing that you were bringing to them, but there was a lot more. There was the human interaction that was so meaningful.
A lot of these people never saw anybody else. So delivering Meals on Wheels was a venture for them to see other people from their own homes. They really enjoyed having somebody to talk to and relating to. People were interested in retelling the history of our kids and so on.
We are such completely social beings. that when we don't have a network of social interactions, we deteriorate very, very quickly, all of us. Well, the reason I'm involved at is because you are, and you're so inspiring.
I think it's meaningful to be giving and helpful.
It created this sense of belonging, and it's the human interactions that ultimately make us feel that we are of value on this planet. Just as my dad was before, we can be there for them now.
Thanks, guys.
Seniors need your help now more than ever. Give today at mealsonwheelsamerica.org/seniorsneedyou.
Wow. You'll have to go to the next slide in a second. We'll go to COVID-19 impact and response. But before we do, just say, how heartwarming is that? And what Homer described is exactly the experience that any person who volunteers with Meals on Wheels has. That the volunteers tell us that what they get out of the fulfillment and basically the hope and feeling of euphoria of knowing the difference that you're making in someone else's life, in some respects, is even more meaningful to the volunteer than it is to the senior on the other side of that knock. So we really appreciate their support. So how have things changed since the onset of the coronavirus? Just as it has for so many industries and organizations, Meals on Wheels has been turned upside down, and I'm sure all of you and your lives and your work has too. Next slide, please. But the Meals on Wheels network didn't back down in the face of the pandemic. Rather, practically overnight, our programs adapted their normally high-touch service model to safely address this surge in unprecedented need. Early on, 79% of our programs reported that the demand for meals had at least doubled, and some saw increases of 900%. To meet this escalating need, Meals on Wheels programs transformed their senior centers into grab-and-go drive-through meal sites for more mobile seniors who could get there. They introduced no-touch home deliveries to ensure the safety of both the senior and the volunteer, and they augmented friendly check-in calls, making sure that even when we couldn't visit a senior in person, they still knew that someone cared. We could still visually affirm their well-being. Next slide, please. As demand for Meals on Wheels soared, we also saw another troubling trend, and that is the decline of volunteers. Historically, our army of 2 million plus volunteers skewed older. And understandably, many of these individuals made the choice to back away from volunteering for the health and safety of themselves and those around them. In some communities, local programs were able to recruit younger volunteers, like college students suddenly home from school, to help the cause. But the majority of programs needed to instead turn to paid delivery drivers, and many are still carrying that added expense today. Next slide, please. At Meals on Wheels America, we knew that we had to quickly step up. And thanks to generous support from individuals, corporations, foundations, and even other nonprofit organizations, we were able to make a real impact on seniors' lives through our COVID-19 Response Fund. In fact, this past year, we were able to distribute more than $31 million through more than 1,100 grants directly to the front lines. All told, our network was able to deliver an additional 19 million more meals and serve 1 million more seniors in need. In addition to establishing the COVID-19 Response Fund, we rallied a variety of other resources across the organization to lead our network through turbulent times. And in many cases, this had to do with companies that didn't have funds but had goods or products that they wanted to donate. I know that Kristine coordinated a number of different donations internally. We were able to, could be truckload of chicken, could be truckloads of bananas, could be truckloads of personal protective equipment or cleaning supplies that we could then get to programs in need. And also, most notably, we were able to help secure on Capitol Hill through our advocacy efforts, $925 million in emergency federal funding for senior nutrition programs through the 3 federal relief packages, which was really important because there has never been enough funding for Meals on Wheels. We have way too many seniors who need it but aren't getting it. So, even though there's been this outpouring of support, the need is still extensive. Next slide, please. Together, through acts of generosity, both big and small, we were truly able to make good go further for Meals on Wheels and the seniors that we serve. But to tell the story better than I ever could, here's another short video showcasing our collective impact. Please play the video.
When 2020 began, millions of seniors were already living in the midst of an epidemic. Not a viral one, but one of hunger and isolation. Then, COVID-19 hit, and a massive wave of newly isolated seniors joined those who were already homebound, forced to live without access to food or human connection. As lifelines were cut and the world stayed in, Meals on Wheels rose to the challenge. And every day, our volunteers, staff, and partners continue to answer the call, working to deliver hope, safety, and compassion to an additional 1 million seniors and counting. Altogether, delivering over 19 million meals. We are relentless in our determination, and thanks to our generous donors, we've come a long way, but there's still a long road ahead. So we will keep pushing forward. Because even though we will get beyond COVID-19, there will always be more seniors who are hungry, isolated, and in need of support. Give today and make good go further.
Thanks, Ellen. If you could then go to the next slide, please. As that video conveyed, we must keep on pushing forward because we definitely are not out of the woods yet. And while the country looks ahead to a post-COVID life that we all yearn for, we know that Meals on Wheels programs and seniors will have a much longer road to recovery. As one telling example, 3 out of 4 Meals on Wheels programs believe that there is unmet need in their communities, that they need to continue to deliver home cooked meals or frozen meals, whatever is nutritious and that we can get to seniors safely. And 62% of local programs can't keep up with their current senior client list without additional financial support. That's the part that scares me the most. This is why we're so grateful for continued support from donors like the Daughters of Penelope and all of you who have stood by us before and during this pandemic. And I know we can count on you going forward. Next slide, please. So given all that I've shared, you may be wondering how you can stay involved and continue to help. Next slide, please. First, if you're interested in volunteering, you can visit our volunteer portal through mealsonwheelsamerica.org/volunteer. There you can simply type in your information and it will be sent to the nearest local Meals on Wheels program. One cautionary note though, please keep in mind that amid COVID-19, some programs are in desperate need of new volunteers, while others are currently unable to leverage new volunteers. And local programs are extremely busy responding to the growing needs, so please be patient in expecting a reply. They will get back to you and we do appreciate it, but because programs meet the needs of their individual communities, it's difficult to have a one-size-fits-all response. Next slide, please. We also welcome you to follow Meals on Wheels America on any of our social media channels as listed on this screen. This is a great way to hear the latest from our team, including stories of seniors and volunteers who were impacted by your generosity. Next slide, please. So that kind of gets me to the tail end to thank you so much to the Daughters of Penelope for your generous philanthropy and ongoing support of our mission. And Kristine and I are here able and willing to answer any questions that you might have about Meals on Wheels and the seniors we serve. I guess it's back to you, Georgette. I'm not sure who to go to or the panel itself.
Thank you, Ellie. What a beautiful and comprehensive presentation. And it's really inspiring because the work that you do touches so many people in so many different ways. I have a question, and my question is, Meals on Wheels is international. Can you speak to to the international impact across the world?
Well, I can just say that, particularly during this pandemic, it's a global pandemic, and whatever we're experiencing here in the United States, I can assure you is happening in every country across the world. There are Meals on Wheels programs in other countries, and we actually have some members out of Canada, North America, because we represent North America, and many of our sister affiliates in other countries stay in touch with us. But we are not an international organization, so we are domestic only, North America.
Okay, so you focus on North America, but there are affiliates throughout the world.
There are others, yeah. In fact, if you look way back at the history where Meals on Wheels first started, it started in Great Britain when nurses were pushing baby carriages with meals to get to the front lines then of the service men and women that were at war, to sneak meals into them, and that's sort of where it started. But we've visited other countries where we've been invited to present, Australia being one. So there are other. But when I say affiliates, they're not affiliated with us, but they are Meals on Wheels programs.
How do they come up with the meals?
What do you mean by? Give me a little.
Like, do you have dietitians that?
Okay, sure, very good. So a couple of things that are important is that Meals for Seniors have very specific dietary requirements that aren't necessarily the same kind of meal that you might serve your kids. And so most programs do have either nutritionists or dietitians, and if not, they're guided by dietitians. And we have one on staff, for example. We run the National Resource Center for Nutrition and Aging and bring together nutritionists and dietitians. But there are requirements, dietary requirements that meals must meet. So we're very careful about that. But what we're seeing, Georgette, is more of a push, and we're leading that charge of medically tailored meals, recognizing that, as we mentioned, so many of our seniors are struggling with multiple chronic conditions and challenges with, basic daily tasks. So we want to make sure that the meals that we're providing seniors are as closely aligned with their medical needs as possible. And that's what medically tailored means. And so most all of our programs at least offer renal appropriate, low sodium meals, but we're trying to do more in terms of choice and really bumping that up. The challenge with truly medically tailored meals is they're a lot more expensive. And so, as you heard in my presentation, that the need is so great that there are millions of seniors that need Meals on Wheels that we can't provide it because we just don't have enough funding to do that. But we want to make sure that the meals that we are providing are improving health and well-being, and we are tracking that.
Okay, to expand on that, how does a senior sign up for Meals on Wheels? Is it on the website? Because sometimes seniors don't have online capability. So how do you find those seniors to provide those meals for them?
Right. Well, there are multiple ways that seniors can access meals. Their doctor, oftentimes they get referred to a Meals on Wheels program because their doctor has recommended that. In the local community, there are area agencies on aging that can point people to how to get meals. But you can go to our website. Again, I understand not everybody has access, mealsonwheelsamerica.org, and you can type in, there's a place that says find meals, and you can literally type in the zip code of a loved one or where you live, and it will connect you with the closest Meals on Wheels program that serves that particular zip code. We also have, obviously we have a 1-800 number if people are struggling with being connected with the right program. But there are multiple ways to do that. We recognize that there isn't a one size fits all either, and not all of us are as technology savvy as others. So we want to make sure that if somebody needs it, that they have access to it.
The current stimulus package that's being debated in Congress, are they including Meals on Wheels as a beneficiary of some additional support?
Yes, so the most recent piece of legislation that is being considered does have additional funding for senior nutrition programs, Meals on Wheels programs. And we're really very pleased to see that, because when the president came out with his original proposal, there was nothing in there specific for Older Americans Act programs. And we worked very closely with our partners across the aging network to really push for that. And yes, so there is funding in there, and we're keeping our fingers, toes, and eyes crossed that that will pass the finish line with the additional funding in there. Right now, I think it's $750 million, which is critically needed, because as you've already heard, all of the emergency funding that I mentioned earlier that came through the previous relief funds, and all of the 31 million that we augmented through our own COVID-19 response fund have been exhausted. Those funds have been exhausted. And so many of our programs are continuing to provide service in hopes that that funding will be there for them.
Wonderful, thank you.
Sure.
Congressional advocacy. Do you have strong support in Congress for Meals on Wheels? Not just now in COVID, but beyond the COVID world.
Sure, no, I understand your question, Georgia, absolutely. You know, I think this is one of the things that we're very proud and pleased about, is that Meals on Wheels has historically and continues to be bipartisan and bicameral, meaning that regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, regardless of whether you're in the House or the Senate, we have seen an outpouring of support. And one of the things that I think has really made the difference is our local programs invite members of Congress and elected officials to deliver meals, to go on a home delivery, to experience firsthand what you saw, you know, Homer Gear talking about, what I mentioned about the experience of somebody just waiting to see that one person for Meals on Wheels in a given day, and whose life is brightened immediately by seeing that there's someone else at the other side of that door that's there for them. And that to me has been one of the most meaningful ways of getting support through Congress, is having them experience themselves, and then also hearing from from clients. You know, we at Meals on Wheels America have to be the voice for millions of homebound seniors who can't march in Washington. We have to make sure that we're capturing their stories, their voices, so that they're being heard and they're not forgotten. Because, you know, these are the issue of senior hunger and isolation have been long-standing epidemics. And so, you know, the fact that we've been able to shine a light during the pandemic has been for us the silver lining, because we never have been able to get the attention of so many organizations and supporters as we have during the pandemic. What we're just hoping, and Kristine's working madly to do that, is to keep the momentum going, and for them to see the difference that they're making in the lives of people. I mean, you know, this is one of those volunteer experiences where you actually can see the difference you're making right then and there, versus, you know, other volunteer opportunities, all of which are important. I don't mean it, but this is one where you actually feel it in your heart the minute you do it.
I totally agree. Once somebody experiences something, they're open to not only giving of their time, but giving of their funds and things like that. So that's really very good approach. Kristine, when it comes to getting people to donate and doing a capital campaign, what are some of the things that you highlight in promoting the Meals on Wheels?
Kristine, you're on mute. You gotta.
Well, I think like Ellie said, you know, we have so many powerful stories, stories of impact, stories of need that we share. And I think one of the things that's most powerful about our cause is that, you know, everybody gets old. So I think everybody can relate to this to some degree. And I think also the fact that we are in every community. And so one of the things that has really resonated is really just this neighbor helping neighbor. I think that, you know, because we are kind of confined in our own little neighborhoods, everybody's kind of checking in on each other. And so I do think that there's this new appreciation for wanting to check in on your senior neighbors, wanting, you know, and even for those families that were typically able to get out and take care of an older relative or an older friend, and now they can't. it's just nice to know that there is a safety net for them with Meals on Wheels. And so I think that there's a new appreciation, and like Ellie said, we just have to kind of keep that momentum going and show the impact that they are having. So that's why we were able to share so many videos with you guys today, so that you guys can see the impact that you're having on the network as well.
We also have another sister who's a volunteer, and she said, you know, everybody's trying to be very careful with COVID and everything, you know, with the kitchen, the drivers and everything. But what tactics have been helpful across America to encourage people to come and help and volunteer?
Yeah, well, you know, it's a really good point. And for the sister who's in College Park volunteering, thank you for doing that. There are other ways that people can volunteer. Even our senior volunteers who felt they needed to stay home, understandably, to protect their own health and well-being, making phone calls, you know, writing notes, handwritten notes that either can be delivered with the meal that the program can do, or could be sent by the program. We have to protect we have to protect the personal information of our clients. But, you know, when you're a lot of our volunteers are regular volunteers for certain routes. Depends on which part of the country. It could be route or route, but I say route. And you establish those relationships. And a lot of times, you know, the senior is like, well, you know, where's Georgette? Where's Kathy? You know, I'd love to hear from her. So, you know, our programs make those connections. In fact, one of the great stories that I want to brag about Kristine and her team working on was, you know, like Hilton Hotels. They had a lot of employees that wanted to do something, and they, you know, they have a call center. And so they were willing to use that call center to make, you know, do outbound calls to seniors to let them know that someone was thinking of them. And then we had other people that Kristine has been working with, other companies that did handwritten cards, you know, to send to people, like Valentine's Day and things like that. So there are a lot of other ways that you can volunteer from the safety and comfort of your own home if you can't get out.
Thank you. I think there was another question about how does a person pay to receive the meals, and how frequently do they get the meals?
Well, there isn't a one size fits all on that either, but generally Meals on Wheels is set up to focus on those seniors who are in the greatest social and economic need. And so no person is turned away because of their ability to pay. That's really important. But there is always and most people feel this way, a lot of seniors feel this way, is that they want to know what is the cost of the meal so that I can contribute to pay it forward for someone else. Now, there is private pay. There are programs where people can afford to pay for their meals, and they do. And we found that most seniors want to make a contribution, if that makes sense. So it's really contributing to the benefit of somebody else. But programs do not, to my knowledge, nor are they supposed to turn away anybody because of need. They may turn people away because they don't have enough resources, and they have to, I mean, I've heard this statement said by many programs before, they feel like they have to play God, because if someone is worse off than someone else, how do you make a decision of, if you can only give 20 people a meal, but you have 25 people in need, those 5 people are going to be on a waiting list. And that is horrendous. And no program wants to do that. And they have to sometimes make a decision about that. But about the pay, so the point is, depending on, some programs have very large kitchens, and they produce their own kitchens. We have some programs that have commercial sized kitchens that are distributing thousands of meals a day, producing thousands of meals a day. They may be able to get because of volume, the cost of those meals down. Whereas we may have some programs that literally are working with a local caterer or neighbors to prepare meals. So the cost of meals really vary based on what part of the country you're in, what the volume is, and what the service is. And I think your other question was, is it daily, or is it, you know, is it, and again, I would just say, let's talk about pre-pandemic for a minute. Most Meals on Wheels programs believe, and part of their service model is they like to provide a daily hot meal. They may be able to also combine that with an extra meal too, but that has been sort of their mantra, because there's nothing like a home cooked meal, right? But the reality is, in some cases, let's say it's a rural area, you may have a person delivering over 35 miles to 5 people in West Virginia, and you can't do that on a daily basis. So it really depends on the person, the program, the community, and the resources. I mean, I know that's a wild answer, but it's just the truth. There is not a one size fits all.
So I'm guessing that if somebody's really in need and that can't afford it, Meals on Wheels will use their funding to provide those meals for them.
Yeah,
as
I mean,
best they can.
if they can, absolutely, absolutely.
So most of your funding, because I know I looked it up when we were deciding on Meals on Wheels, and I know that you have a very low administrative overhead. Most of your money goes to the programs and providing the services for your clientele, correct?
That's correct. Well, you're talking about us or general Meals on Wheels programs, because Meals on Wheels America does a lot more for programs. So for example, we need to be the voices on Capitol Hill to make sure that we're getting millions of dollars of federal funding directly back to programs. We need to do the research to show the evidence base so that individual programs, we can make the case with companies, with individuals, because you want to know what's the impact. Is it making a difference? We also do a lot of education and training because there's an economy of scale and efficiency that we can do that individual programs can't do. And we also give out funding directly, to support it. So, we try to keep our administrative costs as low as possible so that we can provide more funding to programs, but also campaigns like the videos that you just saw. All of those were campaigns that we did at Meals on Wheels America, but we send those out to our programs so that they can use it for their own fundraising as well, and to make the case among their supporters in their communities.
Absolutely, because you need that presence to draw attention, to motivate, and to bring in additional support. As
Exactly.
I'm talking with my hands and I'm talking to you on Zoom.
That's okay.
I wish we were at the table having lunch and discussing this, because it's
We sort of are.
Well, I have to tell you that I got a text during your presentation that somebody signed up and volunteered as they were watching your presentation. So you know that presentation was really motivating. I enjoy listening to you and learning from you. And I also learned a lot about campaigning and advertising and motivating people from you, so I can transfer that to the daughters in other ways too. So you two are on the top of my list as, mentors. Let me put it that way. And it's such a pleasure to see you again. I wish we were in person, but it's good to see the both of you again. It's been a long time since, a year and a half? A year and a half? I don't know.
A year.
Time is
Yeah.
a year.
About 13 months.
13 months since we had lunch together. I don't see any other questions, Kathy. Do you see any other questions?
Yes, there were a couple, I think here. One was that I think they mentioned that the HEPA housing with the apartments and all, and the daughters' housing, they do receive some meals from Meals on Wheels, and say that I guess some of the residents there pay for it, but if for those that can't pay, if they can't afford that, is there provision for them, and where's the funding go to and all?
Yeah, and I think that Ellie talked about the funding.
But I mean, in regarding about a HEPA housing, that's an interesting point too, that Meals on Wheels are a part of, the HEPA and daughters housing. Yeah, so that's fine. And then there was another comment that one of the sisters' mothers really enjoyed receiving Meals on Wheels, especially with the volunteer and that social interaction too. So thank you.
I think the social interaction is probably just as strong as the meal that's being served to them. I want to thank Ellie and Kristine, and really, Elena, you're in that district. You have to get them in as members of the Daughters of Penelope. We love to call them sister in a true sense of the word. I'd like to thank you both for taking the time and making this presentation to us. And if there isn't any other questions, I would like to turn it back over to Grand President Celia for a closing. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Kristine. I hope to
Thanks,
see you
Georgette.
face to face.
Thank you, Georgette.
Thank you, Georgette. And I want to thank you, Ellie and Kristine, for taking the time to inform our members about Meals on Wheels. You know, when you hear that term Meals on Wheels, it's more than Meals on Wheels. I mean, it is just accompanies the whole person that they support and that they help out. I remember when I first saw the video on Meals on Wheels, I thought to myself, this program provides more than just nourishment. These volunteers are checking in on seniors who they may only see that one person in a day. And as we know, human interaction is so vital to the individual well-being. And so your program really does nourish the body and the soul. And, you know, God bless you for all that you do. And I hope that you're able to keep doing all the things that you do in the programs that you showed us in all the videos today. It is my pleasure as Grand President, on behalf of the Daughters of Penelope, to present to you today a donation of $10,000 for you to use to support all of those programs that you have told us about today. And, you know, we hope that it will support you in as many ways as it can. And any sisters who are on today, or any people that are watching on Facebook Live that would like to make a donation to Meals on Wheels, the address will, and the link, that's the word I was looking for, the link will be in the chat, and you can also check out our website. So I thank you again, and I wish you much luck and success, and I certainly do look forward to getting together again in DC for lunch when we can put COVID behind us a little ways. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Celia. We really, really appreciate the generosity, the continued generosity that comes from the Daughters of Penelope. And the only regret I have as well is that we're not face-to-face sitting around a table and hugging one another out of mutual respect and appreciation. I look forward to the time when we can do that again.
I do as well. I want to thank our sisters for attending today, and for those watching on Facebook Live for taking the time to learn about Meals on Wheels along with us. I'm sure that your mind is just exploding with all the different things that we learned today. It is my hope that our sisters gained some insights into this project so that they can share that information with the sisters in their area. Once again, I want to thank Executive Director Elena, Grand Secretary Georgette, and Grand Governor Kathy for coordinating and hosting our webinars. What will we do next Thursday morning? We don't have a webinar next Thursday morning. Our next webinar, though, will be presented by past Grand President Demi Thomas, who is the Projects Committee Chair. Her focus will be on the process for submitting a project for consideration by the committee, and the date will be announced shortly. In closing, I have some exciting news to announce that on March the 8th, we'll be having a very special webinar to celebrate International Women's Day. So please join us on that day. We have information has been coming out to our membership, but remember, until then, stay well, stay in touch, and remember that together we are stronger and together we thrive.